On to this now. The University of South Africa is commemorating its 150th anniversary this morning under the theme Reclaiming Africa's Intellectual Futures. But today's celebrations are clouded by the damning independent assessor's report, which found several financial irregularities, a disregard for due process, and recommended that UNISA be placed under administration while its management must be relieved of their duties. Newzroom Africa's Ziyanda Ngcobo is watching the story for us and joins us now live from the capital. And it is quite a milestone, Ziyanda, no matter how you dice it. But sadly, UNISA doesn't come out of this moment smelling like a bed of roses.
Absolutely, and I mean, if you actually look at the history of UNISA from the time it was the University of the Cape of Good Hope and how it transitioned and changed its name to the University of South Africa in 1916, this is a university with a rich and diverse history. One of the first universities on the continent to actually introduce distance learning and has been a pioneer in many aspects, including, the fourth industrial revolution. But as you've already mentioned then, a lot of issues that this institution is having to deal with, whether you're talking about its own vice-chancellor directly, that's Ngcobo, or if you're talking about that report by that independent assessor who found several issues, and it's something that's been faced by institutions of higher learning across the country. So let me bring in the Dean of Students, Oletu Sipuka, to actually talk about the importance of today, Mr. Sipuka, but also it's hard not to talk about the issues. Just yesterday, the Sunday Times was reporting about, papers that haven't been marked, about around 300,000 out of 500,000. It's not a good look.
Well, thank you very much, Sissy. I think today marks an important, history in the South African context, particularly within higher education, because, as you correctly put it, UNISA is the mother of all universities. And interesting enough that when we mark 150 years, we are also led by a mother who is most passionate about students, but also the future of this university. You would know that almost 2.5 years ago, UNISA was ranked around number 13. And since the new Vice-Chancellor has taken over, we are now sitting between number 7 and number 8. And of course, we do have those challenges around, unmarked scripts and so on and other things. Partly because of the huge volume of students that we have. Almost 400,000 students, reside in this university. And of course, you'd appreciate the kind of pressure that our lecturers from time to time would face, including the markers. So some of the things that came out in the newspapers are precisely a reflection of the huge number of students that we have. And perhaps the question that we should ask ourselves as a university is what kind of additional capacity should we put in place? Because we are the bedrock of higher education in South Africa. We produce a third of all teachers. So this is one university that, for instance, you can't afford to collapse, amongst others. And therefore, the call is to all members of society to work with the Vice-Chancellor and the leadership corps to ensure that indeed we solidify this massive institution of ours.
I mean, to be fair to you, the issues I think that UNISA is facing is not unique to UNISA. Stellenbosch, we've seen issues of nepotism there, UCT, etc., etc. I could go on forte. So what is it do you believe needs to happen to ensure the stability of these institutions, that the type of people who are appointed have the requisite ethical disposition to actually ensure that the governance of these institutions is also sustainable? What went wrong here?
I think one of the fundamental questions that across the higher education landscape in South Africa is who constitute council, for instance, which is the pinnacle body that governs all universities. And therefore, when you ask that question, you must say, what kind of persons should be at council? Does it require us to fix our statutes as the university community as a whole, so that you have got people with the requisite skills, expertise to be able to ensure that we've got sound and proper governance in our institutions? You've cited one of the universities where it's clear that an element of capture of that university has taken place. And I'm telling you now, probably all universities have got that. So we must look at the kind of caliber of leadership that we elect into our councils, but also that should permeate also in terms of academics, in terms of, executive management, etc. And I think that UNISA and the higher education space is not aloof from what's happening in our country and in different aspects of our governance as a whole.
Very quickly, I'm out of time. Transformation at UNISA, how are you faring?
In terms of transformation, I think you would know that, for instance, if we look to talk about race, you would appreciate that our senior management is largely black and largely female, which is critical and important. You would appreciate that a few years ago we dealt with the issue of English and Afrikaans as primary modes of teaching, and you would know that some elements who were refusing transformation in the university took us as far as courts to say that Africans must continue being in our question papers, etc., etc. That's one issue that we're still grappling with, but I'm confident that we'll be able to resolve that matter as well.
All right, Ziyanda Oluwatosepuka is the Dean of Students here at UNISA. Plenty to talk about, but as he's already mentioned, part of the larger landscape when we talk about institutions of higher learning. And the Higher Education Minister, Dr. Bladen Nzimande, will be in attendance, as well as the Chancellor of this very university, former President Thabo Mbeki, who is, of course, an alumnus of this university. It also includes the former Deputy Chief Justice, Dikgang Moseneke, the founding father of our democratic South Africa, that's Utatu Nelson Mandela, and our current President, Cyril Ramaphosa. So we're looking to get a sense of where and what has been done with this 150 years with the biggest institution of higher learning on the African continent, Ziyanda.
Absolutely.